the polls that show the American people and also significant majorities within the Democratic Party don't want him to run again, and the polls that show his handling of the economy, foreign policy, all of these dismal polls, his job approval ratings, does the White House have any basis to challenge the accuracy of that polling?
I'm not challenging the accuracy here. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying to you is that, we're not going to change the minds of Americans. I get that. Americans are going to feel how they feel.
You should, though. You should really try to change the minds of the Americans because the polls look really bad. I'm not telling you how to run for office, but generally you want people to not hate you. Anyway, the polls that Karine Jean-Pierre is being asked about right there are bad. And to be clear, they're not challenging the accuracy of them. But let's see, recent Bloomberg News Morning Consult poll head-to-head, Biden versus Trump, which is still what it's looking like most likely the outcome to be. Trump is up by 4 points in Arizona, 6 points in Georgia, 4 points in Michigan, 3 points in Nevada, 9 points in North Carolina, 2 points in Pennsylvania, 4 points in Wisconsin. There is a margin of error, but at a certain point, the pattern becomes fairly clear. So I would say get on changing people's minds because this is not tenable. Not if you care as much about the future of American democracy as you're telling us you do. Mondale, I want to start with you. What do you make of the current state? We're still 11 months out from the election. Admittedly, a lot can change. You could be a jailbird by then, but what do you make of this?
I'm not implying that anybody's in violation of the Hatch Act. I am saying that what we just saw from the press secretary is the exact problem that the Biden campaign has. The fact that you're going to say that we can't change America's mind is the wrong thing to say. The correct thing to say is we're not the first incumbent president to be down a year out from election in the polls, right? Like if Obama would have dropped out a year out before the election because he was down in the polls, then he wouldn't have had a second term. That's the correct thing to say. The idea that you're not trying to change people's mind is exactly how you're going to make these polls come to fruition next November. I am absolutely disgusted with that response, but it's par for the course when you have, I'm not applauding too much of the Biden's presidency. It's been milquetoast as it was expected to be, but there has been some serious legislation passed that they could be bragging about. The idea that she didn't talk about when he said something about the abysmal market, they should have bragged about the stock market. But I'm not here to tell the Biden campaign how to run. I would love for them to drop out if they need to. I could give them some pointers on some things he could do other than be president. The problem, though, is this is the problem. Not just the poll itself. I don't care too much about polls because they're polling the people that they want to, i.e. likely voters. They're not talking to a majority of certain segments, which means people who are registered but not likely to participate. And then we've seen that demographic actually change the outcome of elections for the past 2 presidential elections, and people aren't talking about that. So I am worried, though, that we have a presidential campaign that is being ran by people who think that it's not their job to change the mind of folk that need to vote for them.
Yeah, John and Mondale, the reality here is we see in the press secretary who has a background, leading an organization that was a sort of a democratic bastion of support in Move On, a later version of Move On than the one that drew me in when we were all protesting the Iraq War and so on, the progressive version. But the later version, Karine Jean-Pierre was, one of the leads of. And for her in her role as press secretary to basically say, we know better than you. Like we know better than all of you voters what it's going to take for the president to be reelected. I feel like that's the messaging we are hearing again and again and again. Like, oh yeah, that's what it is. But don't worry, we're fine. We're totally fine as is. And I appreciate your point, Mondale, that the polls are what they are. But at the same time, we have never seen in history since Jimmy Carter a president more unpopular at this point, this close to the election, with essentially a corrupted Democratic party that refuses to endorse open debate or any other alternatives, right? Yeah. So they're doubling down on the nature of the problem, in my opinion. And this gets to the much larger point that I've been chomping at the bit to talk with you all about when it comes to President Biden, is we just don't know what his vision is. Like, what's his vision for America moving forward? Restore the soul? Well, that kind of worked because of how awful and traumatizing the years with Trump was, and how clearly poorly run that administration was, let alone all the fascism and all of this. So restore the soul isn't, we don't even know what that means. Restore the soul so that we can, fund and support a genocide in Gaza. I mean, that's one type of soul restoration. That's not very soulful in my opinion. So, I mean, what's his vision? We see younger voters being totally turned off, which might mean they don't vote, right? I mean, per your point, Mondale. We see Muslim voters in states like Georgia and Michigan, swing states with significant amount of Muslim American populations, being totally angry and feeling like this president is not there for them. And of course, we see progressives also. So there's a lot more energy on the Republican side. That's why the polls are what they are. And so this president, who hasn't done really active press conferences, or really active, when I mean like actually sort of edgy, energetic interviews or press conferences, he's being placed in formaldehyde in the background. That's not going to work. It's just not going to work, and it's clear, and the writing's on the wall, and it's eminently clear. I mean, it's like, I even read a story with Cornel West, involving Cornel West on Politico yesterday, saying that Cornel West even thinks, he's polling about 5% nationally, that Biden won't even end up will drop out at some point. So like, this is not good. The Democratic Party needs to, grow a couple and make and sort of decide what its strategy is going to be to actually get all of us. Most Americans are very unhappy with the status quo when it comes to this president, despite a couple of good things domestically, terrible things in terms of foreign policy and mostly, but they need to be building energy around their campaign and their movement. And this it just doesn't seem like this is the candidate for these times. I mean, if nothing else, because of age, let alone some quite despicable, in my opinion, policies based on my own biased way of looking at things.
Yeah, look, at this point, I don't think any of us expects Joe Biden to necessarily be the greatest avatar of the message, but for Karine Jean-Pierre, it's literally her job, is to successfully spin what is coming at you. What's coming at you right now is polls that don't look great. I feel like almost anything she could have said would have been better than what she did. And look, Joe Biden feels like he's sort of surrendering to some extent, and we cannot be that surprised that the Democratic Party, the organized leadership of the Democratic Party, is just like, whatever, I guess he's the incumbent. But it's so weird that they're getting this assist from the media, who collectively are all just pretending that there's no primary. Either primaries are illegal or they should be invisible. I mean, CNN every day is doing a town hall with the gaggle of weirdos on the right that's running. They gave Vivek Ramaswamy a national platform to just make completely unfounded accusations about FBI false flags. And they did that. And they did Ron DeSantis the day before. They're gonna do Chris Christie. You can't have the Democratic contenders for the primary on. It's almost the exact same situation, by the way, because Donald Trump is not debating. So they are stepping into the void and providing town halls. Well, on the other side, you can do that. You can give Dean Phillips is a sitting politician. You can't give him a town hall. Marianne Williamson, there are other candidates obviously as well, but you could easily do that. They've got the time. It's a 24-hour-a-day news network, but they're giving an assist to Joe Biden and pretending that he doesn't have to run.
And despite all of that,
and I think
the just sort of like the pretending like these other candidates don't even exist. Both Marianne Williamson and Dean Phillips are polling higher than Vivek Ramaswamy in national polls, and that speaks to how most of us are just not happy with the president. So they're doing their best to pretend like there aren't any other candidates that even exist, even though despite that job, they're more popular than Vivek Ramaswamy, thankfully.
I think. For me, I don't know if they're doing Biden a service. They think they may be doing him a service by curbing the other the people on the Democratic side in the primary, even though the Democratic Party is not willing to have a primary process. But they're not really, though. If you think about it, we saw CNN and other major news network in 2015, 2016 make Donald Trump. And what I mean by make Donald Trump is Donald Trump had over $1 billion worth of free media, right? He didn't have to spend any of his budget on commercials because anything he did was covered from beginning to end. Even before he was on stage, when he was warming up the come-up, he kept people coming. The camera was on Donald Trump events the entire time. So right now that is being split between Donald Trump trials and the rest of the Republicans. So I don't know if they're doing Joe Biden a comfortable one by not covering the other candidates. I think what happens is, in the Democratic Party may learn this the hard way, that red wave that didn't happen in 2022 may be the tsunami in 2024, especially if we know that if what we're seeing in these polls in these so-called battleground states hold true. And I also want to say that, there's no service for candidates when they're not in the media. And this campaign has not even started to do anything. We've seen a few ads from Joe Biden's campaign, but the Republicans are already deep into campaign season. We've seen 4 or 5 debates and Donald Trump doing whatever he's doing. Now there are town halls on CNN. So people are being fed Republican talking points over and over, and they're popping up in spaces where they shouldn't even exist. And there's no counter to it except for, we know we're not going to change your heart.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder, John and Mondale, if there is some internal polling that these sort of establishment advisors to President Biden are doing, or I just don't know what their strategy is to actually win this election. I'm just saying that, say I was just like Karine, who I've actually been on MSNBC with, and is a very, very smart at framing things in ways that sort of seem pleasing, right? And so to actually to see them, I don't know what their strategy is, because every time I've seen an interview with a senior advisor to Biden, or even some of the acolytes to Biden, like on CNN and MSNBC and so on, all I hear them saying is it's a long way till the election. Well, Biden will be 11 months older when the election occurs, and that's a real issue amongst many others. And the other point, about media and free media that Trump got is, it's the same thing as social media. It's all about what will grab eyeballs. So someone who's insane, who says a lot of lies and is angry and is good at riling people up and is a good kind of, front man, like Trump is an expert at that, will get eyeballs. I mean, it's something that we as human beings, we like that edge. We like that controversy. We might like and hate it at the same time, but we often like things that are not good for us, right? I mean, I could just go to the 7-Eleven and just around the corner and get a bunch of hot dogs and candy, and then I'll feel terrible afterward, but I'll like it while I'm eating.
Yeah, let's do that after the show, actually.
Should we do it, man?
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's just, at this point, it is really weird to be going through what is ostensibly in a democracy supposed to be an open primary process. And the only debates we'll have had is TYT hosted the candidates for a forum, and Gavin Newsom debated Ron DeSantis, so that's good. Isn't that weird? That the guy who's not running gets to do a debate, and only then because Sean Hannity sets it up. Super weird, not nearly enough questions being asked about that.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members, because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us, become a Young Turk.